Well, Intel's third quarter earnings are just now hitting the wire. Stocks popping more than about 4% here. Let's get you the numbers. So Intel reported $13.7 billion in revenue for the third quarter here. That is higher than the $13.15 billion expected by analysts. Just looking for the adjusted earnings per share. There it is, 23 cents. That's above what was projected. Turning ahead, fourth quarter, adjusted EPS of 8 cents. That looks like it's less than what was estimated. The chip maker forecasting revenue here, $13.3 billion at the midpoint of the projected range. That looks like it's below the $13.4 billion that was expected. Although I do see headlines as well that that Intel is saying that guidance would exclude Altera. Also, just looking quickly here through some of the divisions. Manufacturing arm, Foundry, there it is, reported an operating loss of $2.3 billion for the third quarter. That was wider, it looks like, than what was expected, but an improvement from the previous year. Statement here from CEO Lipton saying in a statement, AI is accelerating, he says, demand for compute and creating attractive opportunities across our portfolio. Well, for more on this, Intel's third quarter earnings just crossed the wire. Let's get more reaction. We got Ben Bajarin standing by, CEO and principal analyst at Creative Strategies. You know, Ben, heading into this print, I mean, stakes were high for Intel. You know, heading in year to date, that stock was up 80% heading into the report. And at least initially here, Ben, it looks like that stock's moving higher. But what are your initial thoughts on the report?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I think you're looking at everybody wanting to see, more of a structural recovery, obviously balance sheet, looking at some of the roadmaps that they've had. We're coming off an event where they're launching and have launched the official products for next year, both for CPU and data center. So I think there's, cautious optimism. I feel like that's kind of been the case like over the last year, just looking at Intel. And I think everybody just wants to see steady steps in the right direction. And really that's what looks like happened here. I mean, revenue was good. You're right. I think the guide was just slightly low only because of Altera. And really, I think the all eyes move to Foundry here as we look for the next year, where just, again, a lot of the upside is in the hopes of not just product volumes, but also Foundry opportunity with other customers.
Let me ask you about, you get this report as the investments were just pouring into, White House, NVIDIA, SoftBank, billions pouring in here. What are they doing with that money, Ben? What should they be doing?
I mean, a lot of it's still just balance sheet. I think they're just trying to still get the capital under control. There's not a lot going, again, into investments at this point, right? In terms of CapEx, we haven't seen an increase in CapEx yet, which would sort of be an indication of what's going on for 14A, right, as the next node in Foundry. So I think a lot of this is still execution, right? They're just starting to ramp Panther Lake and Clearwater Forest, which will be based on 18A. These are also going to be high-end chips in the market, right? They're not chasing the low end yet. Where they'll see significant volume come back to Foundry. They have better wafer economics than they did when they were making these products at TSMC. So a lot of that sets up, I think, for a good couple of quarters, if not a strong 26, as we see what happens in the PC and the data center landscape. But I think, again, product side is not really where people have had the most concern. It's still been, what are you going to do with Foundry? It's a huge expense. They want to see customers and revenue opportunities from the Foundry side.
The knock on Intel I was hearing, Ben, for some time was, listen, where was this company in that great mega AI trade and trend, right? So what is CEO Lipton's plan there? What is his AI strategy? What investments is he making, Ben, so that, at the end of the day here, he's going to create a great, compelling, competitive product?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things. I think, the CPU or the role of the CPU, both in desktop and server, doesn't go away in the AI era. In fact, I think there's some evidence that it becomes even more important, if not to see CPU as a category in data center, as a growth opportunity, both in dollars and volume. And obviously, what he's done with NVIDIA becomes a really interesting strategic lever, because you could argue that they're going to leverage NVIDIA's dominance across the stack, especially even in data center, and tie their CPUs more to the upside in NVIDIA. So while that might be less attractive for those who want to see them, really pull out an AI accelerator and go after the volumes from a GPU or a dedicated AI ASIC, the opportunity there to be the preferred or the head CPU head node of choice for NVIDIA actually becomes a really interesting upside. So I think there's variances there to see how that plays out. Again, we don't want them to completely give up on this idea of GPU or Intel-based ASICs for inference. But right now, right, as you know, it's an NVIDIA show, and I think being tied to NVIDIA is actually a net positive for them, both in client and in server.
You know, that Foundry business, Ben, how successful do you think they're going to be there? Policymakers in Washington want to see them successful for geostrategic reasons. But what do you see ahead in terms of attracting external customers for 14A, that next-gen manufacturing process?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at this where, we want to see some customer engagement, some customer work with the PDKs that will come out eventually for 14A just to see the quality. I know just from having talked to a lot of folks in the industry, especially in the supply chain, a lot of people wanted to see Intel deliver their product roadmap. So that's Panther Lake and Clearwater Forest on 18A before they would, really take this seriously. Essentially, it was approve your process, your packaging is state of the art. And if it is, then we'll take a deeper look at it. And it feels like that's the case. Panther Lake's a good product. Clearwater Forest is also a very good product. And so I think this will help people, justify taking a deeper look at the quality of 18A. And then we just go from there, right? They need customer wins. They need wafer customer wins for 14A, which will also slightly come backward to 18A and 18AP, but they need that customer to commit so they can commit to 14A.
Final question, Ben, just the minute I have left. Lipton takes over in March, got a turnaround plan. He said it's going to take time. What do you make of his plan, Ben? Does he have the right priorities in place?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think he's been a very good deal maker, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously, the deal with the government helps. The deal with NVIDIA helps. I imagine that there's still some more very strategic deals coming. It seems like he's very willing to be customer-centric and essentially just say, what do we need to do, right, to become partners and have you work with Intel and Intel Foundry? So I think that's positive. And obviously, I think everybody's happy with what's happening on the balance sheet, that they're getting costs under control. We want to see them continue to invest and execute. And I think this quarter is evidence of that. And if this ramp for 18A products is good, like I said, I think that still sets up well for Foundry. So his leadership, his willing to be dynamic, his willingness to maybe do things differently from a deal making standpoint, I think is helping. But again, we need more customers to come to Intel Foundry, and so I think he's the right person. But I think everybody will feel better when we see a couple of customer commits to go forward for Intel Foundry.